Imagine a disillusioned army veteran, angry, armed, and convinced the government has declared war on its own people. Now imagine that belief turning into the deadliest act of domestic terrorism in American history. This isn't fiction. This happened. And it all leads back to one name: Timothy McVeigh. Tim was just 23 years old when people who knew him described him as quiet, intense, and obsessed with guns. He believed deeply in personal freedom, and just as deeply, he despised the federal government. To him, the government wasn't protecting citizens, it was slowly tightening its grip on them. In 1988, Tim enlisted in the U.S. Army. He served during the Gulf War and dreamed of joining the elite special forces. But when he failed the selection process, that dream collapsed. By 1991, he was out of the military altogether, angry, directionless, and increasingly distrustful of authority. Instead of settling down, Tim became a drifter. He traveled from state to state, often living out of his car, following gun shows. There, he sold military surplus, ammunition, and extremist literature. He passed out anti-government flyers and far-right pamphlets warning people that the federal government was becoming tyrannical. To Tim, this wasn't paranoia. This was preparation. Then came events that would radicalize him completely. In 1992, a standoff between federal agents and a family at Ruby Ridge, Idaho, ended with multiple deaths, including a woman and a child. 1 year later, in 1993, federal agents laid siege to a compound in Waco, Texas. The standoff ended in a massive fire that killed more than 70 people, many of them children. To Tim, Ruby Ridge and Waco were proof. Proof that the government was willing to kill its own citizens. Proof that armed resistance was justified. Proof that someone had to strike back. From that point on, his hatred hardened into something darker. Tim began talking openly about revolution. He believed the government intended to confiscate weapons and strip Americans of their freedoms. When Congress passed the 1994 assault weapons ban, it only fueled his rage further. To him, this confirmed everything he already believed, but time for action had arrived. That's when the plan began. Tim reconnected with an old Army friend, Terry Nichols, who shared many of his views. Over time, Tim revealed his idea: attack the federal government directly. Not soldiers. Not politicians. A symbol. They experimented with explosives in remote fields, testing mixtures, learning from manuals, and slowly refining a devastating weapon. Tim settled on an AFO bomb, a mixture of ammonium nitrate fertilizer and fuel oil capable of leveling buildings. He then chose his target, the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building in Oklahoma City. The building housed multiple federal agencies, including the ATF and Secret Service, agencies he blamed for Ruby Ridge and Waco. In Tim's mind, this building represented everything he hated. The date was no accident. April 19, 1995, exactly 2 years after the Waco siege ended in flames. In the days leading up to the attack, Tim rented a moving truck. With Nichols' help, he stockpiled fertilizer, diesel fuel, and explosives, storing them in various locations. But when the final moment arrived, Nichols backed out. He refused to help carry out the attack, but crucially, he also refused to report it. Tim went out alone. On the morning of April 19th, Tim drove the loaded truck into downtown Oklahoma City. He parked directly in front of the Murrah building, lit the fuse, locked the truck, and calmly walked away. At 9:02 a.m., the bomb detonated. The explosion ripped off the entire front of the building, floors collapsed. Windows shattered across a 20-block radius. A massive crater formed where the truck had been parked. The blast killed 168 people, including 19 children in a daycare center inside the building. It was, at the time, the deadliest act of domestic terrorism in U.S. history, and Tim thought he had gotten away with it. But just 90 minutes later, everything unraveled. An Oklahoma state trooper pulled him over for driving without a license plate. During the stop, the officer discovered Tim was carrying a concealed handgun. He was arrested on the spot, completely unaware that authorities were already hunting the bomber. Back at the crime scene, investigators uncovered a critical clue: a destroyed axle from the bomb truck. Despite being blown apart, the vehicle identification number was still readable. That number led straight to the truck rental agency, and straight to Tim. When investigators released a composite sketch of the renter, it matched the man already sitting in jail. Timothy McVeigh was charged with murder, conspiracy, and the use of a weapon of mass destruction. During his trial, his motive became clear. He saw himself not as a murderer, but as a soldier striking back at an oppressive government. The jury disagreed. In 1997, Tim was found guilty on all counts and sentenced to death. In 2001, he was executed by lethal injection, becoming the first person executed by the federal government in nearly 4 decades. Terry Nichols was sentenced to life in prison. Another accomplice, Michael Fortier, served time for failing to warn authorities. The bombing changed America forever. It forced law enforcement to confront the reality of domestic extremism. It reshaped federal building security nationwide. And it left behind a permanent scar, one defined by empty chairs, grieving families, and the devastating cost of radicalization. This story isn't just about one man. It's about what happens when anger turns into ideology, when ideology turns into violence, and when innocent people pay the ultimate price. Don't forget to like this video, share, and subscribe.